The Galactic Empire had always been a powerful force, feared and respected by civilizations across the stars. It stretched over countless star systems, ruling with an iron fist. No planet had ever truly stood against them, until now. Earth was a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, a world that many in the Empire considered unimportant. For centuries, they had watched from afar, but only recently did they begin to take notice of Earth's potential. Earth had been left alone for so long because it was considered too primitive. The Empire's scouts had seen humans, busy with their wars, struggles, and their ever-growing desire to explore the stars. But despite their technological advances, the humans seemed unorganized, not a threat to the powerful Empire. Yet, the Empire could sense that something was changing. Human scientists had been studying the stars, developing technology at a rapid pace. They were on the verge of discovering something that might allow them to challenge the Empire's dominance. On one cold, silent night, the Galactic Empire finally decided to act. A fleet of warships was dispatched from the Empire's central worlds. The fleet was massive, filled with highly trained soldiers, advanced weapons, and ships that could crush entire planets. Their mission was clear. Earth had resources they wanted. The Empire would take control of the planet, and humanity would fall in line, just as every other race had. The fleet's commander, General Varro, was a seasoned military leader. He had led many successful campaigns across the galaxy. For him, Earth was just another world to conquer. He had heard of the planet's inhabitants, but he believed they would easily submit to the might of the Empire. The general had no doubt that Earth would fall just like the countless other worlds before it. As the fleet traveled through space, the crew began to prepare for their arrival. The ships were equipped with powerful energy weapons, ready to subdue any resistance. They had no idea that humanity was already prepared. Earth's leaders had been preparing for this day for many years. Back on Earth, no one knew the Empire was coming. Yet, the world's brightest minds had been working together for a long time, planning for something bigger than themselves. Scientists, engineers, and military experts had secretly developed new technologies. These technologies were unlike anything the Empire had seen before. They were a response to the growing fear that Earth might someday be targeted by a force much stronger than themselves. A group of top leaders had quietly formed a plan to send a message, a warning to any invaders, should the day ever come. The leaders of Earth knew that their world was not as powerful as the Empire's. They didn't have the same advanced technology or military might, but they had something the Empire didn't: unity. Humans had learned to work together, to overcome their differences, and to fight for their survival. This would be their greatest strength. As the fleet drew closer to Earth, a signal was sent out from a hidden base on the planet. It was a message broadcasted across the stars, designed to be received by any civilization within range. The message was simple, but it was powerful. Earth will not bow. We will fight for our planet, and we will not be enslaved. The message was sent with a clarity and strength that no one expected. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was a declaration of strength, of humanity's will to survive and defend their home. It was a warning to the Empire. Earth was ready, and they would not give up without a fight. Back on the Empire's flagship, General Varro was sitting in his command chair, reviewing the final preparations for the invasion. His communications officer suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "General," the officer said, "we've received a message from Earth." Varro's eyes narrowed. He expected it to be some sort of desperate plea for mercy or a simple threat from a weak, unimportant race. But when he listened to the message, something inside him changed. The humans were not begging for their lives. They were declaring war. He leaned forward, staring at the screen as the message repeated. The words echoed in his mind, sending a chill through him. Earth would not surrender. They had nothing left to lose. For a moment, Varro hesitated. The thought that Earth could stand up to the might of the Empire seemed impossible. But as the seconds ticked by, he realized that the humans might not be as weak as he had thought. There was something in their message, something that couldn't be ignored. The Empire had underestimated them. The decision to invade was no longer as certain as it had once been. The Empire's might was formidable, but the humans had sent a clear message. They would not go down without a fight. And the Empire would soon learn that it had made a grave mistake by underestimating Earth's willpower. The days following the message from Earth were filled with tense silence. General Vero paced around his command room, his thoughts racing. The message from Earth was no ordinary threat. He could feel it in the air. It was more than a warning. It was a challenge. A challenge from a species that was supposed to be weak, primitive, and unworthy of attention. Back on Earth, news of the message had spread across the planet like wildfire. People from every corner of the world watched in awe as their leaders prepared for the unknown. The humans had always been curious, always looking toward the stars. But now, the stars were looking back, and they didn't come in peace. Earth's leaders had been working in secret for years, developing technology and strategies to defend their world. When the Empire's ships appeared on the horizon, humanity was not as unprepared as the Empire had thought. Earth's defense systems were ready, though no one could be sure how they would fare against a fleet as powerful as the Empire's. The United Nations had called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. All the nations of the world gathered to form a united front. It didn't matter what country someone came from or what language they spoke. Humanity was one. And now they had to stand together. A team of Earth's brightest minds had worked together in secret for years. Among them were engineers, scientists, and military strategists, all focused on one goal: to ensure humanity's survival in the face of a threat they could not fully understand. They had created a vast network of satellites, weapon systems, and communication devices, all designed to send a clear message to the invaders: Earth would not fall. In a hidden base deep beneath the surface of the Earth, engineers powered up a massive communication array. The array was capable of transmitting across vast distances, enough to reach the farthest corners of space. It wasn't just a message. It was a warning to anyone who dared to threaten humanity's future. Meanwhile, the Empire's fleet continued to approach Earth, its ships gliding through space with eerie precision. General Vero stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the approaching planet. He still couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was hiding something. How could a primitive world like this send a message so powerful? Was it just a bluff, or had they really developed something capable of standing against the Empire's might? As the fleet neared the Earth's orbit, the first human response arrived. The communications officer turned to General Vero with a look of surprise. "General," the officer said, "we've received another message from Earth." Vero didn't know what to expect. He had already heard the first message, but this one was different. He nodded for the officer to play it. The voice that came through was calm, but the words carried weight. "You have been warned. Earth will not surrender. Our people stand united, and we will defend our home with everything we have. Leave now, while you still can." The words were simple, but there was no mistaking the strength behind them. This wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of defiance. Earth was telling the Empire to back off. They weren't going to beg or plead for mercy. General Vero's eyes narrowed as he processed the message. His fleet was massive, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. And yet, the humans were standing firm. He couldn't help but respect them, in a way. But that respect wouldn't stop him from carrying out his mission. "We'll make them regret their defiance," Vero muttered under his breath. But even as he spoke, a part of him wondered if he had underestimated the humans, their resilience, their refusal to give in. It was something Vero had never encountered before. As the Empire's fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, humanity's final defense system came online. Satellites and orbital weapons powered up, ready to act if the Empire dared to land on their world. Earth was not going to be an easy target, and every member of humanity knew it. On the ground, people prepared. Military forces around the world moved into position, ready to defend their cities, their families, their way of life. For the first time in human history, The nations of Earth stood united, not against each other, but against a common enemy. It was a sight to behold. Humans, who had been divided for so long, now working together as one. Back on the Empire's flagship, General Vero stood at the helm, watching as his fleet descended toward Earth. He knew that this was it, the moment when the Empire would either crush the human resistance or face the consequences of underestimating them. "Prepare to land," Vero ordered, his voice cold and determined. "Let's show them what happens when you challenge the Empire." But as the fleet made its final approach, something unexpected happened. The sky above Earth lit up with a brilliant flash of light. The Empire's ships shook as their systems suddenly flickered and sputtered. Weapons systems failed, communication lines were cut off, and their technology seemed to be malfunctioning. "What's happening?" Vero demanded, his voice rising with alarm. It was Earth's final warning. A secret weapon, developed over years, designed to disable the advanced technology of any invader. The weapon wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to send a message, to make the Empire realize that Earth was not a world to be conquered without consequence. The Empire's fleet was stalled, caught off guard by the humans' unexpected move. For the first time, General Vero felt doubt creeping in. He had never faced an enemy that could fight back like this, and now he had to make a choice: proceed with the invasion, or rethink everything he thought he knew about Earth. General Vero stood frozen, staring at the screens in disbelief. His fleet, once so confident and unstoppable, was now struggling. The advanced technology of the Empire was malfunctioning. Ships that should have been gliding smoothly through space were now barely maintaining their course. Communications were down. Weapon systems were offline. Even the Empire's best officers couldn't understand what was happening. "What is causing this?" Vero demanded, his voice tight with frustration. His hands gripped the command chair, his knuckles white. "Find the source of this interference." On the bridge of his flagship, his officers scrambled to investigate. But no matter how much they tried, they couldn't identify the source of the disruption. It wasn't just one ship that was malfunctioning. It was the entire fleet. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the humans were watching the effects of their weapon unfold with a mixture of hope and fear. They knew they had just taken a massive risk by activating it, but there was no turning back now. This was the moment they had prepared for, when Earth's survival depended on their courage to stand up to a greater power. In cities across the planet, people watched the skies with wide eyes. The air felt heavy with tension. Governments and military forces were ready to defend Earth with everything they had. Soldiers stood at attention, weapons in hand, but no one knew for sure if this would be enough to protect their world. In the heart of the United Nations, representatives from every nation gathered in a makeshift war room. They had worked together for years to prepare for an attack like this, but now that the moment had arrived, there was a sense of uncertainty that no one had expected. The weapon had disabled the Empire's technology, but it wasn't enough to stop them completely. "We can't be sure how long this will last," one of the military leaders said, his voice grim. "The Empire's ships may recover quickly. We have to move fast." A young strategist, who had been silent until now, stood up. His name was Marcus. He was just a teenager when Earth's leaders first started working on this plan. Now he was one of the lead scientists overseeing the defense effort. He had grown up with the knowledge that one day, Earth might face an enemy like the Galactic Empire. And now, that day had come. "The key is not to fight them with force," Marcus said, his voice steady but full of conviction. "The Empire thinks they can crush us with their superior technology, but we're not going to win this by matching their power. We have to outsmart them." His words struck a chord with everyone in the room. The humans knew they couldn't match the Empire's firepower, but Marcus was right. Earth's strength lay in its ability to think differently, to innovate in ways that no one expected. General Vero's frustration grew. His officers were still scrambling to identify the source of the disruption. He could feel the tension building on his flagship. The fleet was vulnerable, And it wasn't just the malfunctioning technology. It was the humans themselves. Earth had found a way to fight back, and that was something Varro had never seen before. "Commander, we need to act now," Varro said, his voice sharp. "We cannot allow Earth to think they can outsmart us." But even as he gave the orders to push forward, another thought nagged at him. Could Earth truly stand up to the might of the Empire? The humans had done something he couldn't understand, and it was clear that they were not the weak, unorganized race the Empire had assumed. As Varro's fleet continued its approach, Earth's leaders began to take their next steps. While the interference from Earth's weapon was still affecting the Empire's technology, the humans knew they couldn't rely on this alone. They had to act while they had the advantage. In space, humanity's forces prepared their final line of defense. While the Empire's fleet was stalled, Earth's defense satellites fired up. They were equipped with powerful energy beams, designed to slow the Empire's ships long enough for the humans to make their move. It wasn't just about stopping them. It was about buying time for Earth to mount a real counterattack. On the ground, Earth's armies were preparing for the worst. Even though the interference from Earth's weapon had given them a brief advantage, no one knew if it would last. The soldiers stood ready, armed and prepared to protect their families and homes. General Varro, now on the edge of panic, issued orders for his fleet to proceed, but his confidence had started to wane. He was beginning to realize that this wasn't going to be like any other invasion. There was something unique about Earth, a stubbornness, a will to survive that he had never encountered before. As his ships drew closer to Earth's surface, Varro's mind raced. He had never seen an enemy fight back this way. Earth's people were unlike any other species he had conquered. They were desperate, yes, but they were also determined. They had something that the Empire couldn't easily destroy: hope. Just as the first wave of Empire ships began to descend toward Earth's atmosphere, a bright light flashed across the sky. Earth's final defense system had activated. The Empire's ships shuddered, and once again, their systems flickered. This time, it wasn't just technology failing. It was something bigger, a sign that the Empire was in for a much tougher fight than they had ever anticipated. The humans were no longer just defending. They were standing up to an empire that had once believed it was unstoppable. As the Empire's fleet continued its descent, General Varro could only watch as Earth's forces began to respond, with humanity's strength and ingenuity shining brighter than ever. The skies above Earth were alive with activity as the Empire's fleet continued its descent. Their ships had broken through the outer layers of Earth's atmosphere, but the interference from the humans' defense systems was far from over. The Empire's once feared technology had proven vulnerable to Earth's surprise weapon, and that vulnerability was now becoming apparent on every ship in the fleet. General Varro stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the monitors. The Empire's fleet had been powerful, but this was something different. The humans had managed to disrupt their systems, and Varro could feel the tension in the air. His pride as a leader, his confidence in the Empire's superiority, was starting to crack. "Status report." Varro barked, his voice sharp. The communications officer quickly checked the readings. "Sir, the fleet's systems are still in a state of disarray. We've lost several critical functions on multiple ships. We're unable to contact some of the outlying vessels." Varro's fist clenched. He had never expected Earth to present such a challenge. "Send a signal to the fleet. We can't afford to lose more ships. We must continue with the invasion. Proceed with landing." But even as he gave the orders, Varro couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he had underestimated humanity. They had a tenacity that no one had anticipated. This was not the type of species that would bow down to an alien empire. They would fight for their survival, no matter the odds. On the surface of Earth, humanity's response was swift. Across the globe, people gathered in defense of their homes and families. Nations, once divided by their differences, were now united under the banner of survival. The human spirit was alive and strong, ready to face the unimaginable. In the United Nations headquarters, world leaders had come together in a unified command center. With Earth's final defense systems activated, they now focused on the next phase of the plan. A young strategist named Marcus had taken center stage once again. "We have to keep the pressure on," Marcus said, his voice steady but urgent. "The Empire thinks they can just march in and take control, but we know better. We have technology, we have courage, and most importantly, we have each other." The room was filled with nods of agreement. The world's leaders knew that they couldn't match the Empire's firepower directly, but they could use their intelligence, their ingenuity, and their sheer will to survive to their advantage. In space, Earth's defense satellites targeted the Empire's ships, sending powerful energy beams toward them. The beams were not meant to destroy. They were meant to slow the Empire's advance, to buy Earth more time. And as the satellites activated, Earth's forces on the ground moved into position, ready to respond to the Empire's next move. The Empire's ships, disoriented and damaged, struggled to regain their bearings. Some tried to return to space, but Earth's interference had made their navigation systems unreliable. Others tried to land, but their landing protocols were failing. It was clear that Earth had done something that the Empire had not planned for. General Vero watched in frustration as his fleet struggled. The humans had thrown the Empire off balance, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain control. His flagship was no exception. Even as the systems flickered back to life, the damage had already been done. The Empire's superiority was no longer a certainty. But Vero was not a man who gave up easily. He had risen through the ranks of the Empire by being ruthless and determined. He refused to let a primitive species defeat him. "Prepare for landing," Vero commanded again, his tone colder this time. "We will show them who is in charge. Proceed with the invasion." Despite his words, there was a slight hesitation in his voice. He knew the Empire's superiority was being challenged in ways he had never imagined. Earth's resilience, their unwillingness to submit, it was something Vero hadn't prepared for. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was tense, but hope was beginning to grow. Humanity had done the impossible. They had held their ground against the Empire's overwhelming power. The world's leaders knew this wasn't the end, but it was a turning point. The Empire had been forced to slow down, to reconsider its approach. In the heart of the United Nations, Marcus and the other strategists continued to plan. They knew that this was just the beginning, that the real battle had yet to come. But for the first time, there was a sense of optimism that had been absent in the early days of the conflict. Earth had fought back, and it had been enough to make the Empire question everything. As the Empire's fleet began to regroup, General Vero prepared for the final push. He knew that Earth was not going to give up easily, but he was determined to see the invasion through to the end. The Empire had been brought to a halt, but it was not yet defeated. The next phase of the invasion would determine the future of Earth and humanity's place in the galaxy. But even as Vero issued the command to resume the attack, he couldn't help but wonder, had the Empire already lost? The Empire's ships moved closer to Earth, their weapons primed, ready to take down anything that stood in their way. General Vero, despite the damage to his fleet, still believed victory was within his grasp. He had seen many battles, and none of them had been as difficult as this one, but his resolve was unshaken. The humans had shown their strength, but now it was time for the Empire to show its own. "Prepare for full attack," Vero commanded, his voice heavy with determination. "We will not be delayed any longer." But as his orders were carried out, something unexpected happened. Just as the Empire's fleet began to fire, a strange signal pulsed through the air, reaching the ships from Earth. It wasn't like any signal they had encountered before. It was not a weapon. It was a message that sent a chill down Vero's spine. The message was short, but it was clear. Across every screen on the flagship, the words appeared in bold, simple text. "We warned you." The message came from Earth. Vero's mind raced. He had seen many things in his long career, but he had never witnessed a species so bold as to send a message like this directly to the Empire. It wasn't just a threat, it was a challenge. a declaration of defiance that the Empire had never experienced. "What is this?" Varro demanded. "Who sent this message?" The communications officer quickly scanned the data, looking for the source of the transmission. "It's coming from Earth's central communications network, sir. It seems to be coming from multiple locations across the globe." Varro's eyes narrowed. Earth had sent this message not just once, but many times from various places. It was a coordinated response, a sign that humanity was ready to fight with everything they had. "We've underestimated them," Varro muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He had thought Earth would be easy to conquer, but now it was clear that the humans were far more prepared than he had realized. Back on Earth, the response to the Empire's presence in the skies was just beginning. The people of Earth, united as never before, stood ready to defend their world. Governments had mobilized their military forces, and the civilians had joined the cause. Even in the face of such overwhelming odds, humanity was not afraid. They had been warned of the Empire's advance, and now it was their turn to act. Marcus, the young strategist who had been leading the charge from the United Nations, stood in front of a large screen, watching the broadcast of the Empire's fleet. He could see the ships in the sky, massive and intimidating, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to the room full of military leaders and advisors. "We've made our stand," Marcus said, his voice calm yet filled with an unshakable confidence. "The Empire thought we were weak. They thought they could just walk in and take our world. But they were wrong." The room fell silent. The people in the room had seen the scale of the Empire's power, but they had also seen the unity that humanity had displayed in the face of it. This was more than a battle for survival. It was a fight for the very soul of Earth. "We have one chance to stop them," Marcus continued. "We've disrupted their systems, but we need to keep pushing. This fight is far from over." Meanwhile, General Varro's ship shook slightly as another pulse of energy from Earth's defense systems hit the fleet. It wasn't a full-blown attack. It was a reminder. Earth wasn't backing down, not even for a moment. "Are we ready to strike?" Varro asked, his voice colder than before. The officer in charge of the weapon systems nodded, though there was uncertainty in his expression. "Yes, General. We are ready. But their defenses are still holding. They're more prepared than we thought." Varro's eyes flashed with anger. "I will not be made to look weak in front of my people. Fire the weapons. Destroy them now." The orders were given, and the first salvo of the Empire's weapons shot toward Earth. But just as the beams were about to strike, Earth's own defense systems reacted. The sky lit up as energy shields activated, blocking the attack. The Empire's weapons, though powerful, were not enough to break through Earth's defenses. Back on Earth, the people watched as the first wave of attacks from the Empire hit the atmosphere and was blocked. There were cheers from the people below. They had withstood the Empire's first strike, and it was a moment of triumph. But they knew this was only the beginning. "We've done it," a soldier in the streets shouted. "We've held them off." But Marcus, who was watching from the war room, knew better than to celebrate too soon. "It's just the first round," he said. "We still have a long way to go." As the battle raged on, the Empire continued to push forward, but Earth's defenses were holding. Every attack the Empire launched was met with an equal response, and the humans were growing more confident with each passing moment. General Varro, however, could feel the pressure mounting. Earth was not backing down. It was time to make a final decision. He looked at the monitors, his fingers drumming on the armrest of his chair. He had underestimated Earth, and now he wasn't sure if the Empire would ever be able to finish what it had started. The tension in the air was thick, and the people of Earth could feel it. They had fought back with everything they had, but they knew the Empire's forces were still powerful. The battle was far from over, and every moment counted. As the Empire's ships hovered in the sky, ready to strike again, humanity's defense systems stood firm. Marcus, the young strategist who had helped lead Earth's response, sat in the United Nations Command Center. His eyes were glued to the large screen in front of him, showing images of the Empire's fleet above Earth. The ships were huge and intimidating, but they had not yet succeeded in their mission. "We've held them off for now," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pressure. "But they will come at us again. We need a new plan, something to turn the tide in our favor." The room was filled with leaders and military experts, each one aware of the enormity of the situation. They had seen the Empire's firepower firsthand, and they understood that this was a battle unlike any other. If Earth was going to survive, they needed to think bigger, smarter, and faster. "We need to hit them where it hurts," one of the generals suggested. "We know their ships are vulnerable to our energy pulses. If we can focus our defenses on their fleet's weak points, we might be able to disable them for good." Marcus nodded. "It's our best shot. We've disrupted their systems before, but now we need to deliver a final blow. A coordinated strike, focused on the heart of their fleet." The plan was set in motion. Earth's defense systems began to adjust, targeting the Empire's ships more precisely. Every energy beam, every pulse of power was calculated to strike at the ship's weakest points. It was risky, but it was their only option. Above the planet, General Vero paced the bridge of his flagship. The Empire's fleet had taken some damage, but he had not yet been defeated. He was still confident that Earth would fall under the Empire's control. But now, as the battle wore on, his confidence was starting to waver. The humans had been unexpectedly resilient, and their new tactics were proving to be a challenge. "Sir," one of the officers said, breaking Vero's thoughts, "we're receiving another signal from Earth." Vero raised an eyebrow. "Another message?" "Yes, General. It's the same as before. We warned you. It's coming from multiple locations again." Vero's face tightened. "These humans, they are not like any species we've encountered before. They won't submit easily." He turned to his crew. "Prepare the fleet for another assault. This time, we'll wipe them out." But as he gave the order, something unexpected happened. Earth's energy pulses, which had been scattered and erratic, suddenly focused into a single massive wave. It hit the Empire's fleet like a hammer, striking with a force that no one had anticipated. On Vero's flagship, the ship shook violently as the wave of energy slammed into its shields. The monitors flickered, and alarms rang out. "Shields are failing. Power systems are destabilizing," an officer shouted. Vero's eyes widened in disbelief. "How did they?" Before he could finish, the fleet's systems began to shut down one by one. The power grid on several ships failed, and communications were lost. The Empire's fleet, once the most powerful in the galaxy, was now in disarray. On Earth, Marcus and the team in the command center watched in awe as their energy pulses hit the Empire's ships. The once mighty fleet was struggling, their systems down and their ships disabled. The coordinated strike had worked. "We did it," one of the generals whispered, a look of disbelief on his face. "They're retreating." Marcus didn't allow himself to feel relief just yet. "This isn't over. We have to make sure they don't come back stronger." The Empire's fleet, once prepared for a final assault, was now forced into retreat. The humans had caught them off guard, striking at their core and disabling their ships. It was a victory, but one that came with the knowledge that the Empire would not give up easily. Back on the flagship, General Vero stood motionless, his mind racing. The humans had done the impossible. They had stopped the Empire in its tracks. His pride, his confidence, had been shattered. And yet, he knew that the battle was not lost. The Empire would regroup, and Earth would face more challenges in the future. "We will return," Vero muttered, his voice filled with cold determination. "This isn't over." On Earth, humanity stood victorious. For now, the Empire's fleet had been forced to retreat, but the war was far from won. Marcus knew that the battle had only shifted, it hadn't ended. But today, humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. They had stood tall in the face of an overwhelming enemy and had won. As the people of Earth celebrated their hard-fought victory, Marcus turned his attention to the future. He knew the Empire would return, but humanity had proven something crucial. They would never back down. The victory had come, but the atmosphere was far from celebratory. Though Earth had repelled the Empire's invasion, the war was far from over. The retreat of the Empire's fleet was only temporary. The people knew that, deep down, the battle for survival was just beginning. But today, humanity had shown its strength, resilience, and unity like never before. In the United Nations Command Center, Marcus stood before the large screen, his eyes reflecting the images of the Empire's fleet retreating into the depths of space. He had hoped this would be the end of it, but the general's words from earlier echoed in his mind. "We will return." He wasn't wrong. The Empire would regroup, and Earth would need to be ready. There was no time to waste. Earth's victory had bought them precious time, but Marcus knew that time was running out. "We've won this round," Marcus said, turning to the military leaders and advisors in the room. "But we cannot afford to be complacent. The Empire is not a force that retreats for long. We must prepare for what comes next." One of the generals nodded. "We'll rebuild our defenses, strengthen our forces. We've seen their weakness. Now we focus on exploiting it." Marcus agreed. "We've learned that we can disrupt their systems. If we use that knowledge wisely, we can be ready for them when they return. But we also need to ensure that the people of Earth are united. We need to keep this momentum going." As the days passed, Earth's defenses were bolstered, and the military worked tirelessly to improve upon what they had already done. But it wasn't just the military that stepped up. People across the world, civilians from all walks of life, volunteered to help with repairs, to rebuild what had been damaged, and to prepare for any future threats. In every country, in every city, humanity stood together. No one was afraid anymore. The Empire's attempt to conquer Earth had shown the world something important, that they could fight back, that they had the will, the strength, and the courage to defend their planet. Meanwhile, on the Empire's flagship, General Vero sat in silence, staring out at the stars. His mind was racing, filled with questions. How had Earth managed to stop them? How had such a small, seemingly insignificant world been able to turn the tide against the might of the Empire? He clenched his fists, the frustration evident in his eyes. The defeat had been humiliating, and he knew that the Empire would demand answers. He could already hear the voices of his superiors, demanding an explanation for the failure. "We will return," Vero repeated, his voice colder than before. He wasn't sure how, but he was certain that the Empire would not forget Earth's defiance. Back on Earth, Marcus stood on the balcony of a tall building in New York City, looking out over the bustling streets below. The city was alive with energy, the people moving about their daily lives. But there was something different now. A quiet sense of pride filled the air. The Empire had underestimated them, and humanity had proven that they were far more than the Empire had bargained for. As Marcus watched the sun set over the horizon, he knew that the real challenge lay ahead. Earth had fought back and won this time, but the war was far from over. They had shown the Empire that they could defend their planet, but they would have to remain vigilant. The Empire was powerful, and they would not stop until they had achieved their goal. But Marcus was confident. He believed in humanity's ability to adapt, to grow, and to fight for their home. Earth had faced an impossible challenge and had emerged victorious. And now, they had the strength to face whatever the Empire might throw at them in the future. "We'll be ready," Marcus said to himself, a determined look on his face. "The Empire may return, but Earth will never fall, not while we stand together." As the night settled over the planet, the people of Earth went about their lives with a new sense of purpose. They had defended their world, but they knew the struggle was far from over. Earth was a symbol now, not just of resistance, but of hope. Hope that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity would always find a way to fight for what mattered. And as long as humanity stood united, the Empire would never conquer them. Earth was ready, and no one would ever forget the lesson they had taught the galaxy.